If I was to ask you, would you give Starbucks $200 a month, or would you give the cafeteria at your job $200 a month? You probably look at me like, absolutely not. That's a lot of money. Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. I'm KT. I know on this channel I usually do things with wellness and fitness, which per my title, Stay Fit and Active, that makes sense, right? But what you don't know is the active part of Stay Fit and Active is about being an active member in your life. That's physically, that's mentally, and that's financially, as physical health, mental health, and financial health are some of the more demanding categories in our lives. So usually if someone is struggling, first, it's one of those three areas. So on this channel, I want to be sure that I include all three of those because I really care about your quality of life being as top as it can be. So with that being said, today's video is going to be a financial video. With it being the start of the new year and the start of a new financial year, I thought this would be a great time to drop this video so that you can make this the best financial year of your life. Before we get into it, go ahead in the comments, drop some of your financial goals for this year. Let's go. Okay, first up, my first tip is to actually look at your finances, review them. What do you spend your money on? How can you begin to save money when you don't know where you spend money? If I was to ask you, would you give Starbucks $200 a month, or would you give the cafeteria at your job $200 a month? You probably look at me like, absolutely not. That's a lot of money. But when you think about it, if you're spending $10 at lunch every single day that you work, which is 5 days a week, that's $50 a week. Multiplied by 4 times a week, that's $200. So you are spending $200 at the Starbucks if you're getting a coffee and a snack every morning, or at your lunch cafeteria if every day you're buying lunch. Like, that money adds up. So being able to look at your spending habits and see where your money is going to allow you to begin seeing where to spend it. And honestly, that's a good place to be in, because imagine that you're someone who doesn't spend your money on anything but necessities, yet you still don't have any money. For that person, they only have two options. Either they're going to have to get a roommate, move back in with their parents, or something of the sort, because there's nowhere to cut the money from. You're spending on necessities. But for someone who's spending money on luxuries and they don't have any money, they can easily just stop doing that thing and put money back in their pocket. So using the example of buying lunch every day, you could have $200 back in your pocket if you just stop buying lunch every day. Well, let's say $150, because you still have to have lunch, right? So maybe you have to start going to the grocery store and meal prepping, but that's not going to cost you as nearly as much as $200 a month is going to be, if you get what I'm saying. So first tip is going to be actually look at your bank statements, look at your history, see what you are spending your money on. Which brings me into tip number 2. So once you see what you spend your money on, now you can decide why you spend the money on said thing. Is this a necessity? Is it because of stress? Is it because of habit? You know, imagine using the lunch example. Maybe you're just so used to buying lunch at work, that's why you continue to do it. But now, maybe the lunch, you don't even like it. You know, you just buy it because it's habit. Or every day on the way to work, you're passing that McDonald's, and you're just like, oh, let me stop in here. And then you do it so many times every single day that just becomes a habit. So it's not even something that you enjoy or you actually desire or want to do. You just do it because you've done it for so long, and that's a habit of yours. I've actually spoken with people who get McDonald's regularly or get Taco Bell regularly, and as they're eating it, they're like, I don't even like this. I don't know why I keep buying it. And I'm thinking the same thing. Like, why do you keep buying it? If you don't like it, why do you keep buying it? But it's that habit thing. And then back to that stress. You know, like when you feel stress, or is retail therapy your thing? So do you find yourself always going out to buy something new that you don't need simply because it makes you feel better in that moment? So once you know what you spend your money on, and then you get to the root of why you buy said thing, then you can decide if it's something that you want to continue buying or not. Because maybe there are things you spend a lot of money on, but that stuff brings you joy. You don't want to stop buying it. That's fine. But knowing that is going to be a lot better than not knowing that. My tip number 3 is going to be, if you have debt, plan to pay it off. Okay? There's good debt, sure, and there's bad debt. But regardless, it's debt. So you need to have a plan on how you're going to pay it back. Do you want to use the avalanche method? Do you want to use the snowball method? How much debt do you have, and what's realistic for paying it off? Avalanche method is more so this idea that let's say you have 3 or 4 different credit cards, okay, and they have different interest rates. You want to tackle the one that has the most interest rate, because that is accumulating more debt for you. So with the avalanche method, you want to pay off things that are costing you more. So the biggest amount of debt, the biggest amount of interest rate. On the other hand, the snowball method is you pay off the lowest, smallest debt first, and then you go from there. So it's like a snowball method. Once you start to pay off one, you pay off the next one, and then you just keep going. How you know which one is best for you depends on your mindset. Personally, I like the avalanche method because I like to save money long term. So sure, it might take me longer to pay off all of my debt because I'm starting with the highest one first, but it's still going to get paid off. It's going to save me money in the long run because I am paying off the one that has the highest interest rate. So that one's actually costing me more money over time. However, if you're that kind of person who you need to see results, like if you're paying on 5 different credit cards and none of them are getting down to a balance of 0 quick enough, you're going to be like, bump this is taking too long, I don't want to do it anymore. So if you know you already have that mindset, it might be better for you to pay the smaller amount first because, yeah, it might be costing you more money over time. But once you see, hey, I paid this car off to 0. Now you're all energized. And you're like, I can start paying off the next one, the next one, the next one. So you'll keep doing it. So whichever method is going to make you keep doing it, that's the method that's going to be for you. Sure, one might cost you more in the long run. But again, if you go with the first method of trying to pay all of them at once over time, and it takes longer, and then you don't like that, you just stop doing it, that it still isn't going anywhere. So it's actually going to cost you more over time versus the other method of paying off a smaller balance first and then the next one, the next one, the next one. You're going to keep doing it. So that debt is actually going to get paid off versus this one is not going to get paid off because you didn't like how it was set up. So think about what works for you. Make a plan for it. The next thing you're going to want to do is create a spending plan or a budget. Again, like I said with tip number 3, this is going to depend on what works best for you. So let me tell you what the difference is. A spending plan is you have a set amount of money and you're deciding how you're going to spend said money. A budget is more so about, actually, how would I describe that? A budget more or less caps what you spend. It's a little more fixed and restrictive versus a spending plan is a little more flexible. I know this still might sound a little confusing, so let me just give you an example. So with making a budget, you will look at how much money you have coming in. You take out how much your expenses are, and then what's left of that, you're going to decide where to allocate that to the T. How much am I going to spend on groceries? How much am I going to spend on myself? How much am I going to spend on outings? How much am I going to spend on living expenses like miscellaneous but necessary things like toilet paper, laundry detergent, dishwashing soap, and things like that. So every dollar has a place. Versus with a spending plan, it's a little more generic. So again, you have how much money you have coming in, you decide how much is going to bills, and then what's left, you just give it percentages. Okay, so of this, I'm going to spend 20% on myself, 30% on outings and friends, vacations, 10% on savings, whatever. So you have an entire amount of money to go to whatever you want it to go to versus having a set amount for every single category. Hope that makes sense. So budget is a little more tight. You know where every single dollar is going. Spending plan is a little more generic, but it still keeps you from overspending because you know how much money in general. Let's say you set aside $300 for non-essentials. In a spending plan, that could be whatever. In a budget, you have $300 on non-essentials, but of those non-essentials, you're going to break that down even further and say 100 is going to this, 100 is going to this, and 100 is going to that. So it's very detailed versus this is broad. Okay, but both can work. It just depends on the kind of mindset you have and what you feel like is going to work best for your personality. Which brings me to my next tip of find a way to track. What do you like? Are you a spreadsheets person? Are you old-fashioned with the pen and paper? Would you rather have an app to do all the heavy work for you? Regardless of how you like to do it, it needs to be done. Personally, I'm a spreadsheets person. So I like to have mine month to month. I'm also more of a budget person than I am a spending plan kind of person. But it allows me to look. Like I could tell you every dollar I've spent from today to 2.5 years ago. Like I keep a tab for every single month and I just keep it going. I could every year like just delete the previous year, but I don't know. I like to just keep it in there for whatever reason. But the thing is that you need to be able to see it so you can get a grip on it. And then once you get an idea, like if you are the kind of person who spends money on the same things every single month, then sure, maybe after some time you can just stop tracking because you know how much money you're going to have, you know how much is going where, you understand your money. But before you get there, I think it's a good idea to just keep a track so you can see it, get the hang of it, and understand how you're spending your money, how you're doing financially, things like that. That actually flowed right into my tip number 6, which is to have finance check-ins. Imagine at your job, right? It's like whenever you want a raise, you have to do a performance review, or you kind of want to just check in with things to see how they're going. So do this with your finances as well. Fridays are a great time to do it. Finance Friday, I like to call it. Most people get paid on Friday, so it's a good time to sit down and say, okay, how are my finances looking? What was my income? How much did I spend last week? Like, are things still looking good? Am I saving what I wanted to save for? Just take a look, check in with yourself, make sure you are feeling okay. And then the more you do that, when you check in regularly, it starts to get a little more comfortable. You don't feel so uncomfortable looking at your finances or talking about money because you do it every single week. So now it's like easy peasy. And now that you're having these check-ins and you're understanding where your finances are, you can feel confident that you can continue to make good choices when it comes to your finances. So, yes, do finance check-ins. And what a check-in looks like is reviewing your app, reviewing your spreadsheet, looking at your bank account, seeing what the balance is on your credit cards, and paying them off. Fridays are a good time. Instead of waiting until your statement is due before you pay off your credit card, you could just pay it every single Friday, especially if you have one or two that you use. You're probably going to have a balance every Friday anyway. Just go ahead and pay it. That keeps you ahead of the game, stops you from collecting interest on those credit cards if you can help it. Boom. It's a good time to just pay bills, pay credit cards, get everything done on Fridays with your Friday finance check-in. Okay, with tip number 7. So earlier in the video, I mentioned how there can be good debt, right? This goes into understanding liabilities versus assets, okay? An asset is a debt that's going to help you make money, and a liability is something that you buy that is not going to make you money. In fact, you're probably just going to lose money with it if it's depreciating in value over time, or whatever the case may be, whatever you spent the money on. Things like an asset, and again, this is just my opinion, but you still have to make smart choices. So people say things like an asset is a mortgage, a student loan, a business, investing in a business, right? Because those things should make you money in the future. You buy a house, the house goes up in value, you sell said house, boom, you made money off of that, that's an asset. You go to school, you spend money on a degree, you get a high paying job when you get out of college, that is an asset. You're making money on that. You start a business, that business flourishes, you start making money on it. So that was a good investment. However, in all three of those categories, that assumes that you're going to have a return on your investment. So that's assuming your house is going to go up in value and you can sell it. That's assuming you're going to get a high paying job when you get out of college and you can make more money on it. That's assuming that this business that you invested in is actually going to flourish and not tanker. So all of these things, people make it seem like, these are assets and like it's the best thing you put your money on. It's only the best thing you put your money on if you are confident you can make money off of it in the future. So those are things like assets. Versus a liability could be a car. Everyone knows the minute you jump off the lot, that car done dropped $10,000. Things like shoes, unless you are sure that the pair of shoes you bought is like a special edition, custom something that's going to be worth 3 times the amount in the future, that's probably just going to be a liability. So be cautious on what you're buying. Are you buying things that are making you money, or are you buying things that are causing you to lose money? In my opinion, a laptop could be an asset because, yeah, you can buy a laptop, but nowadays you can do all kind of things on a computer that can make you money. So to me, that could be more of an asset, but to someone else, that could be a liability. So, it's up to you to decide what for you is a liability and what is an asset. But the thing to understand to make that decision is this going to lose me money in the future, or is it going to make me money in the future? All right, my tip number 8. So in tip number 6, I mentioned doing, weekly check-ins with yourself. I'm also going to recommend doing a monthly check-in with yourself. So this could look like is just how the weekly check-ins will look. But personally, I enjoy doing a net worth sheet. You heard me right. Net worth does not just apply to celebrities, people with big bucks, okay? Everyone should know how much money you have to your name. So again, I'm a spreadsheet person. You can do this how you please, but I enjoy putting together a spreadsheet where I write down literally how much money I have in everything. If you have 3 different checking accounts, put in how much money you have in all 3 of those accounts. If you have 3 different retirement accounts, put how much money you have in all 3 of those retirement accounts. You get what I'm saying? Wherever you have money, you want to put that in the how much money I have section. Then you want to go over to your debt. So if you got 3 credit cards, 1 student loan, 1 mortgage, whatever, put that in the other category. So this is money that I have. This is money I owe. You're going to subtract those 2 from each other, and this is going to tell you how much money you have to your name. And Lord, you want this to be a positive number. Now again, you're investing in a business, paying off a mortgage, something that's going to give you money in the future, it could be okay that it's in a negative number as long as you have a plan to get that into a positive number sometime soon. So monthly check-in can just be updating how much money you have to your name, because if you're paying off debt every single month, that number should be getting bigger. So you want to keep track of how much money I'm accumulating over time to my name. Or if you're investing more money in something and then those investments are getting bigger, you want to have track of that. Like, oh, I made $500 in dividends this month, so that increased how much money I have to my name. So you want to always know, what do you have to your name, by taking what you have physically, money you have, minus money that you owe, to get how much money you actually have. Hope that made sense. Could be could give you some anxiety. Maybe you don't want to do that, but I personally think it's great practice. So I'm throwing that in here as a tip. Which brings me to tip number 9. Anxiety, right? So we tend to have bad relationships with money. You might not understand it, but if you have this mindset where looking at your finances gives you anxiety, or thinking about your future income just causes you to shrivel up, or just any talks about money, you just feel uncomfortable in general talking about money, it's probably because you don't have a good relationship with money, and that's something to be improved. You want to be able to talk about money. Think about like these corporations who tell you like, oh, don't disclose your income. You know, there's a reason they tell you that, and I feel like we start to harbor this and just have this whole idea that we just shouldn't talk about money, but we should. Or think about relationships. You got one person, just because you're the breadwinner in the relationship, you pay all the bills, doesn't mean your partner doesn't need to be included on where money is going. So again, having those conversations. So many couples fight about money. A lot of people get divorced over money. So being able to talk with people about financial situations can make you feel a lot better, and it helps you build their relationship with money. You don't feel so uncomfortable saying, yeah, like, you know, in the moment I don't have the money for that. You know, some people, they just spend money because they just can't think, or they don't feel comfortable just saying, I can't afford that right now. Which I believe words are power. So maybe you shouldn't say I can't afford that, but you could just say right now that is not in my budget. That's, if you're one of those people who try to watch what you say, that could be something you can say instead. But some people just do not feel comfortable talking about that or saying that. So instead, they rather pretend like they got it and, I don't know, just being some kind of fake baller where they're just like, yeah, I got all this money, and the whole time they don't. Or just like on social media, you see people out here living their best lives on vacations. The whole time, this is on credit cards. They $40,000 in debt, just posting pictures like they're having a blast, and they don't even have, you know, good financial habits. So when you can build your relationship with money, you can tell yourself, I can have these things. I feel confident with money. Money comes to me. I attract money. You'll notice that you'll start receiving more of that. But if you're always in that scarcity mindset, you might stay in a scarcity place. Same on the other hand, some people have a lot of money and they just don't feel comfortable spending it because they've been, you know, lacked of money, deprived of money for so long. Maybe they grew up in poverty or whatever. So once they accumulate a lot of money, they don't know how to let it go. So they hoard it all. They don't do anything. They're super, super frugal. I mean, to the point of being cheap. You know, there's a difference between cheap and there's a difference between frugal. So you can be frugal. Once you start getting a little cheap, that's crazy, especially if you have a lot of money. Ooh, perfect example. If you ever watched The Game with TV show with Tia Mowry, Pooch Hall, there was a character on that show. His name was Jason. Okay, he's a football player who had like $50 million in the bank, and he would penny pinch. Like, he did not want to spend anything. And again, I get it, but if you watch the show, you will understand it's because he was afraid of losing it. You know, he had a dad who was also a football player, and his dad wasn't frugal at all. He spent money, balled out, and they was broke. So when he was like, well, when I get my money, I'm not spending money on nothing. I'm keeping all my money in the bank. So you got to find some balance. Sure, you don't want to spend all your money to where you don't have anything and you're in debt, but you also don't want to just hold it all, because money is energy. So when you're able to spend it, it will come back to you. You want to live a nice life. Spend money on things that you enjoy because you worked hard for it. You deserve these things. I can keep preaching, but y'all get it, okay? Fix your relationship with money. Think about money differently than you have before. It's the perfect send-off for my tip number 10, and that is going to be set quarterly goals and then give yourself a reward when you reach it. So a quarterly goal could just be, I'm going to save 10% of my check after tax every single month. So you do that for 4 months straight, because 4 3 months straight, because I said quarterly, so that would be every 3 months. Once you do that, then treat yourself to something. It doesn't have to be something that you spend money on, because you're trying to save money, so maybe you don't want to spend money. But you could do something else. You could say, if I do this, I'm gonna host a game night with my family, or or if you want to spend money but keep it low, like once I do this, I'm gonna take myself out for lunch because you did that. This sets up a nice mental system with you, because you start to associate good things with saving money. Like, oh, when I do these things, when I accomplish this thing, I get this thing in return. I get a reward from this thing. Me personally, I have an adventure jar, and any loose change I have, I put in this jar. So my reward system is, for saving all of this cash, once this gets full, you go on an adventure. However much money is in this account is what the kind of adventure you can afford. Maybe that might just be going somewhere for a weekend. Maybe it's enough in there that I could afford a whole week out somewhere. I don't know. So that is my reward system. So once I fill up this jar, I get to spend that money on whatever kind of adventure I want. No, I'm not paying off no debt. No, I'm not paying no bills. I'm going on an adventure, because that is my reward system for doing said thing. So that's just an example, but you do it how you want to do it. Associate some kind of reward system for you doing the thing. So those are my 10 tips for setting yourself up for the best financial year of your life. So boom, as always, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, you learned something from it, and you have the best financial year of your life. Please let me know in the comments which tip you found to be the most insightful, the most helpful for you, and share with your buddies, okay? Because we're, as a community, we all need to have great financial system. So your circle group of people, they all deserve to be living their best financial life. So go ahead and share it with them. Let them get on board with making this the best financial year of their life. If you did like it, you know what to do. Go ahead and give me this little like button. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. Again, Stay Fit and Active is all things physical, mental, and financial. So if you want to learn more things about that, then subscribe so you can hear that. And I'll catch you in the next video. Don't forget to crush it.